Welcome to the Journal podcast from the Chartered Insurance Institute, a place of thought-provoking discussion from the world of insurance and beyond. My name is Harry Elliott and I'm brand manager here at the CII. In today's podcast, I'm joined by Daniella Peers and Fintan O'Connor, members of the 2024-25 New Generation Programme London Market Group. Today we're discussing their project Debunking Myths Around Cryptocurrency and the event hosted today, October the 1st. Perfect. I'm delighted to be joined by Daniella and Fintan here at the CII's office. We've just hot-footed over the road from Lloyds, the old library, no less. Really pleased to be in the room for that discussion on crypto confidence. So I guess my first question to you both is, what made you choose that as a topic of interest?
So we were tasked by the New Generation Programme to find an issue to the insurance industry that was really kind of significance to where we are at the moment in the London market, and how we might improve confidence in the insurance industry and in particular in the London market, and how to maintain London market's reputation as being kind of a leader of innovation. And as we were doing our research into potential opportunities to do that, one thing that stood out was the kind of migration of the total asset value across the world away from physical assets and more into digital assets. And as we looked more into that, we discovered how underinsured this area was, how much interest there was from the digital asset community in insurance. And so it seemed like just kind of the perfect candidate of somewhere where we could produce a sort of educational piece of some variety to kind of improve the standing of the London market.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that growth, as someone who's coming at it a little bit more from a layman's point of view, that growth definitely came across in the literature that you shared and some of the great panel discussion afterwards. What was the process for you in terms of putting on today's event?
Yeah, so we're all insurance professionals, right? Not event planners. So it was quite a challenge initially. You know, we saw the gap in the sort of idea generation stage. We saw the gap and we knew we wanted to do something. From the off, we didn't know that it would be an event. We didn't know what it would be. We deliberated, do you put something in writing? Do you have a series of events, an event? Noting that none of us are experts in crypto or insuring them or digital assets. So actually one of our biggest challenges was, there's this gap, but what can we do about it? So we set out to facilitate bringing the experts to the interested parties in the form of this event. So, first thing was to think about who and where, and was there even appetite for it? The Lloyds Library naturally came up as like the front runner from the beginning. We had a couple of other options, but it's an iconic building, it's an iconic room, and I personally really like the contrast between something new and emerging and really innovative versus that historic room that's rich in history and culture. So that was quickly emerged as where we wanted to do it. And then it was finding who. So we were quickly introduced to Peter Wedge, who led the research study on digital assets and published the book. From there, we did a lot of outreach to his co-authors and some other names that came up in the market. We met with tons of people trying to find out what they knew, what excited them, and thought would they be the right people to put in front of a bunch of people who have mixed knowledge and really excite people whilst sharing their knowledge. So that's how we started.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think it certainly came across there was appetite. It was packed, the room, which is fantastic. And getting the right people in the panel was clearly, that box is ticked as well. It was really fascinating. And in terms of the content was obviously on crypto, but specifically looking at debunking some myths and some common misconceptions. So do you think, that you did that, and do you think that would have helped people who maybe didn't understand crypto as much at the start, get a little bit more of a foothold into the world of crypto?
So one thing that struck me during the Q&A session today was the lack of questions that we anticipated around those myths. We did expect, to be some interest from the audience, some questions such as, isn't it all just money laundering and scam artists and criminal activity that use these currencies? But that didn't actually come through from the questions, even though we do understand that is quite a prevalent kind of concern in the general community about the assets. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of conversation that could be had around those questions. And we did have some good responses from the panel at the end when we did confront them about what are the myths to be debunked on this topic.
I would add as well that we published a sort of 2-page guide alongside the event, and that was available on the chairs in the room, and that did touch on those topics. So perhaps people had read that first and maybe that had answered some of their questions. But yeah, certainly our aim was to debunk a lot of the fears. What we found when we were talking about why is this product not bigger now? Crypto's not new, it's newish, but it's not new. One of the things that we found was there was a lack of understanding and there was fear, and people were scared or didn't understand, or it was just unknown. So that was why we kind of focused on that element and trying to help people understand and not be tricked into believing some of these, false statements like it's all criminal.
Yeah, and to be honest, from my perspective, that was maybe a myth that I had going into that. But again, referring back to the literature that you gave out on the day, there was a line there, I think it was 0.34% of cryptocurrency is actually used in illicit activity. So again, it's really, getting that message across. And going back to the point you just raised, because there was so few questions on that, but more intuitive questions, I think hopefully that looks like the direction of travel that we're going in. So you've come to this through the CI New Generation Programme, through the London Market Group specifically. What's been your experience of the CI and the New Generation Group thus far?
It's been really interesting. I think, staying engaged throughout the whole process, there was so much to learn from debating ideas, picking an idea, sort of pushing that idea forwards in its early days can be difficult because you've got such a lot to do to get to the end of where you want to be, and that feels so far away. But when you just keep chipping away at it, we had weekly meetings, so we just kept chipping away at it, and obviously part of a big success of that was today's event. But through the project that we selected, we've been able to meet so many people and really start to build that network, which has been invaluable. And I would never have come across those people in my day-to-day job without the programme.
Yeah, I'm just to add, I'm very appreciative of all the opportunities for development that have been offered to us over the last year, ranging from just sort of strategic thinking workshop that was held at the CII office, right up to speaking at an all-party parliamentary group in Westminster and given the opportunity to roam the halls of Westminster and present to MPs in those rooms was quite surreal, but and definitely an experience that I doubt I would have otherwise had the opportunity to do, which I'll take with me forward, as well as the numerous other kind of workshops and sessions that have helped me develop.
Oh, it's fantastic. Really, really good to hear. So in terms of the overall process in doing this New Generation Programme, what would you say is the biggest takeaway that you've learnt?
I think it's to really research anything that you're not sure about and that you have an interest in. So despite putting the idea forward, prior to this, I really knew nothing about crypto. I thought it was something that you bought pizzas with, from that one story where someone spent a ridiculous amount of money on pizza. But through doing this, we've met obviously a lot of experts and we found out a lot. And it dispelled a lot of things that I thought were true. So we've touched on criminality. Ben's talk today touched on the environmental aspect, and that a lot of people think it's very harmful to the environment, but actually that's been debunked. And that's something that you shouldn't just take at face value, but you should actually go and read for yourself and research, and not just assume that something you see on Instagram or in the news is gospel, and actually go and look at that for yourself and look at the research.
And one kind of myth that I found to be somewhat debunked from my research is around the longevity of crypto and whether it is here to stay. I think for the most part, people are beginning to understand, that it is here to stay. But as part of this project, the reading I've done around it, I've been particularly kind of transfixed by, the development of Web 3.0, which if you haven't heard of, I'd recommend going and reading into it a little bit, and it might help persuade you on on the expansion of the world of decentralized finance and how dependent the way we communicate in the future is going to be on the blockchain, and therefore how relevant the blockchain will be to the way we live our lives in the future. And that's something I would definitely like to do some more reading on, and I'd recommend anyone else to do their own research again on the matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much out there. Peter's book is probably just the start, isn't it, in terms of the stuff out there. People should then do their own research and take their own sort of takeaways from that. One final question I wanted to pose, and this may be a bit of a big one, but in terms of reflecting on the great discussion in the panel today, what are your hopes for cryptocurrency and the insurance of it going forward? If people can take away anything from today, what would you want them to take away?
I think more people should be brave and confident and throw themselves at new challenges and think about things in new ways, not necessarily try to apply traditional approaches to things that are new. And I think we see that, especially if you look at the things that Ben Davis said and also things that Richard Dawes said, their businesses are very much founded in doing it differently, and that's really working for them. And Ben said in his presentation that the best time to start was 8 years ago, and a good time to start is now. And I think, if anything, that should be probably one of the most impactful things that was said today, because actually, just because it feels like you might be late to the party, it's still a good time to do something, start, and that applies to anything, not just crypto necessarily.
I'm just keen for anyone to go away and learn for themselves a little bit more about the world of the blockchain, even separate from how it's insured or whatever. Just this concept, which is going to be more and more prevalent throughout the world in which we live and how we communicate with each other. And if that leads them to consider opportunities in insurance, might make the insurance industry seem more exciting to those that had considered it a fairly more kind of bland place to work. There could be a lot more exciting, work opportunities for people that aren't in the industry yet, people that are maybe coming out of university or further education. So that's something that excites me about it.
No, absolutely. I think that's something I took away from today is clearly this, it's not going anywhere. It's not a fad. It's not a trend. Again, some of the stuff covered today, the total market has sort of doubled from 2023 till sort of midway through 2025. So yeah, absolutely. And yeah, as you referenced, Ben put it most succinctly, the best time was 8 years ago. The second best time is today. So really appreciative for you guys for putting on all this effort to put the panel on. Recordings will be available, so you can get that in all the usual places. Won't take any more of your time. Really appreciate you coming over to our offices for this interview, and thank you very much for all the efforts put in for the fantastic panel today. Thank you, Fintan. Thank you, Daniella. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Journal Podcast. You can find useful links in the show notes and related articles on the Journal website, along with further podcasts. Please like, review, and subscribe. Until next time, goodbye.